So now that we've seen different types of power and authority, we want to think a little bit about institutions of power and control over others, what we call today states or political entities. Politics is largely seen as the uh, institution of power and control. And modern states today, as we've seen before when we looked at bureaucracy, are large, complex bureaucratic organizations with many special and specified offices. States very generally uh, fall on a spectrum between more authoritarian types, in which people are ruled by either a group or an individual, and it's a very top-down and oppressive type of regime, versus more democratic um, types of states. Authoritarian states are defined again by the fact that the people do not rule themselves. They are ruled by either an individual, such as a monarch or a dictator. So here we think about North Korea or Libya was ruled by a warlord. North Korea is ruled by Kim Jong-un, its singular leader. So that would be a dictatorship. Or we can look at more what we call bureaucratic authoritarian regimes. This simply means that the bureaucracy itself has power and rules over in an authoritarian way. So in Egypt, for example, the military has taken over. It's not one individual who's kind of a strong man running the country. It's the organization of the military. In China, it's the Communist Party. The leaders come and go. The members of the party rise and fall, but the party is the organization that dominates people. And it's authoritarian again because the people have no say. They are dominated. Um, People technically vote in China, but it doesn't really matter. In a democratic society or in a democratic state, the people in some way um, and more or less directly rule themselves. Uh, Democracy itself means rule by the people. Demos is Greek for people, and um, ocracy means rule. I may have made that last part up. So in a democracy, citizens elect representatives often, and the uh, distance between the citizens and the decisions being made by the state uh, are different degrees of representation. What that means is that we vote for people who represent us, but we don't necessarily actually write the laws. Um, the power itself rests in a constitution and an office. So this is a kind of rational legal authority um, where we make up a set of rules or a constitution and we put the power in those rules. Um, and we say these are the rules that will govern our society. So there's a set of rules for how we elect the president and elect our representatives and for how Congress makes decisions. So the power actually doesn't lie with any individual. Individuals come and go from the presidency and come and go from our public offices. But it's the rules themselves, that constitution, that really is the source of power in a democracy. Though on the surface at least, it's supposed to be ruled by the people. But how does this work? What does rule by the people mean? Well, there's a couple different theories here. Pluralist theory argues that out in society, there's a bunch of citizens who form different uh, interest groups, people who have different interests and want to pursue them and have their interests met. Right? So women might try to advocate for women's rights. Um, Rural voters might try to advocate for more farming subsidies. Corporations are treated as citizens. They try to lobby to get what they want done. And the idea is that we're all out here, we try to vote and participate and advocate for our different interests. And so this is ruled by a plurality of different groups. Maybe um, Latinx people want to vote for a particular presidential candidate, and that's how they pursue that interest. So the idea is that no one group really has too much power in society, and that we all try to kind of pursue our interests through a kind of fair and relatively equal system. Power elite theory, as you may guess, uh, differs significantly from this. Power elite theory argues that there is a power elite made up of the wealthy, the political and policy elites, and corporate elites who essentially run the country. Um, so these are the people who make the important decisions, and if we start to look at where they overlap, there's essentially a small group of people who run the world. And they operate in the same circles, they know each other, and we know this by network analysis. So network analysis allows us to look at something, for example, like board interlocks. What we would do here is look at who runs the board, who runs the company at GM, at Ford, at Amazon. What we see is that a lot of the same people make decisions at some of the same institutions. Um, so the Brookings Institution, for example, is a large think tank, which is essentially a place that writes policy. We see that a lot of people on the board of the Brookings Institution are also over here on the Business Council and at the Business Roundtable, which advocates for business interests. If we look closely, we see there's two ties between Nike and the Brookings Institution. So someone who's on the board that runs Nike also is on the board of this think tank. A lot of people on the board of IBM. Or the New America Foundation. Again, this is a kind of a conservative organization. We see a lot of people who run universities have dense ties between the Brookings institutions and indeed some major corporations. So what we're actually doing is we're looking at the connections between individuals at each of these institutions. And what this tells us is that these people, A, know each other, and B, that these people are running different shows at the same time. We're looking at what we call board interlocks. Again, we can look at people, what clubs they go to. We can look at what schools they went to. And what we see is that many of the people who run the country went to the same schools, go to the same clubs, even live in the same places. Think of the names of the last 4 or 5 presidents. Think about where did they go to school? Where's their family based? Might be something to go look up.